Well, today I'm going to talk about HTMX. This is kind of a introductory talk. We'll have two talks. This the first one. Probably Dan will do a second one with more advanced stuff. So this is just a beginner's track. Okay, I'm Alvaro, by the way. Nice to meet you, everyone. Um, well, let's go to it. Well, what's the motivation for this talk? Um, well, there are certain front end requirements in modern development. Uh, we try to fill all of these requirements, like avoid certain HTML limitations, do better event handling, improve the performance, and simplify our code, right? And there are many solutions in the front end side. Some do like a virtual DOM or lower level JavaScript things, and in some cases that's affecting performance or the code becomes complicated. So that's where some alternatives appear, right? So what's HTMX? Well, it's a popular front-end library, right? And it allows building web applications like many other front-ends. Here it's almost the same thing, but we are reducing the JavaScript layer to a minimal and very thin piece of code that avoids using so much JavaScript code, right? And this project is backed by a few companies like JetBrains, GitHub, so it has like a good ecosystem getting bigger. Yeah, so why do we want to use this? Well, as I said before, there are certain requirements in the front end side that everyone wants to achieve, but that's getting a bit difficult. So HTMX solves some of these problems or provides a better solution, cleaner and simpler, and it helps with the interactive designs in a very seamless way, right? Using the HTML attributes, and there is also how to say a language called HyperScript that you could use in combination with HTMX. I'm not talking about HyperScript today, but uh, you can combine both and do interactive front-end development in an easier way than using JavaScript. And it's like a declarative way of expressing uh, what do you want to happen when there is certain events. Um, uh, and it's very similar to I think it's Apple script. I don't remember that now, but the idea is to simplify all the routing of the events and what actions you take on as response, right? And all of these without affecting the performance. So we avoid doing any kind of DOM recalculation, if possible, just fetching a piece of the page, not refreshing the whole thing, only the element that we are interested on changing, and all of this is compatible with the server's side rendering, right? Any question up to now? This is kind of theoretical thing, right? If not, we can move forward. So, what's the plan of this talk in particular? Well, we will be doing inspecting like two small demos. I try to make it as simple as possible so that you can. I will upload it that all these slides and the code. It's very small, very easy to follow, but it will be useful so that you can follow the second talk with more advanced material. Uh, I don't know how many of you had experience with HTMX before. Maybe it could sound like a very beginners talk, right? But if you don't have an experience, it will. I will explain the initial part of this. So let's go to the first demo. Well, here the first thing that you need to do is to fetch this library, the HTMX library, which it is a piece of JavaScript code. You put it in script tag, script element into your HTML, right? But it's, as I said, it's a very thin layer, and you will not be bringing like a very big library or JavaScript code. This is the only piece of code which is related to JavaScript here. So the first thing that you need to do is add this to your code, and you will be fine after that. Um, okay. Then you can start adding certain attributes to your elements, right? For example, here I have these three attributes: the HS get, the HS swap, and HS trigger. And what's this doing? Well, here we are saying that this element will respond to the mouse over event, and this when this event is triggered, a few things will happen. So each time, well, when I hover this element, when I put my cursor there, the HTMX will detect that, right, and will make a request uh, with the get HTTP verb to obtain this message HTML resource. And with that resource already in with the response from that, uh, it will replace the element that we are seeing now. So this is the result of using outer HTML. Here we are telling HTMX, okay, all the information you get from here, from this resource, you will use it to replace this whole element. So we should see first this demo one hover me text, right? And then it will be changed to something else. Well, here's the same I said, an explanation of that. Um, so this, of course, this is in the middle of on HTML code, right? There are other elements outside, but this is the important one. Okay, so we must have this other file, right? In another folder in our source code, and I just put in here a small like a paragraph or something very simple, which it should be standard HTML, because HTMX is working with standard HTML text, like a paragraph or titles or divs, anything like that. It's not working with the JSON or any other kind of data language, right? so it should be HTML. And this HTML will be replacing this whole element, this div, uh, because uh, of the swap operation, right? Great. So, well, serving this is very simple. You can use any server for static content. Here, I will be using a Python with one of the standard modules to serve our files. So, let's go to that demo. Well, okay. Here I have a very small. Is the font big enough? Make it a bit bigger. Maybe there. Okay. So here, as I told you before, I have the script for the HTMX. Very simple. Some styles and the element that I showed you before. Um, Hello, Theodore. So here I have the script for the HTMX, right? On the head, and we have this element div, which has the three attributes that we are going to refer from the HTMX, and it should respond to this trigger. So when we hover, it will make a get request and replace the element with the content of that. So let me start the server here. Okay, it's there. And from the other file, well, I just put a paragraph. It should be enough, but it could be as bigger as you want, and that it will not be a problem for this, right? Because this is just small demo, but you could use like many elements inside, and you could combine many attributes so that you could click in one and make things happen there and work with that. Well, let's go to the any question up to now about this? Very simple, really small code. If not, let me open a browser here. Okay, so let's go to this URL in the port. Sorry, let me check the port. 9,000. Yes, it's this one. Okay. So if I click here, HTMX demo, yeah, it's this one. Yeah, if you see, there is this element that I have originally, this div, and if I hover there, it should be replaced, right? So you can see that we can make this kind of interaction. And if I reload this, we can take a look here. Let me make it a bit bigger here. What I'm going want to show you is this is like a fundamental thing in HTMX, that you are not refreshing the whole thing. You are just replacing small parts of the model, the document object model, right? So in this case, we have this div here that as soon as I hover, it will be replaced like that. And only that, if I had other elements, those will be untouched. And of course, we are getting the uh, the request here. So if we do it again, we have the get request here, very very fast. So with this, it seems like a small thing, but we are avoiding a lot of recalculation. We are just replacing a single element, um, and that is very very fast and very simple code to do that, right? Maybe if you want to do that with other frameworks, you will need to create different components and do some fetching or some replacing there, or even refresh the whole page, which could be inconvenient. So let's go back to the slides. So the question is, can we use our own backend? For example, if we are using a programming language here, yes. The question, the answer, sorry, is that yes, we can do that. There are many backends. Like if you're using Rust, you can use Axum, or for Node.js Express. Well, there are many languages. Each one has one or a few options for a backend, right? We also have in Clojure many options for these. So we can combine those and do some HTML on the server, producing the content, maybe using some templates to generate the HTML, maybe getting some information from a database, or doing calculations to generate all of these, right? So we don't need to, it's not only for static content. Um, So I will do the second demonstration using Babashka, so that because it's very lightweight and it's compatible in many ways with our Clojure code, right? So we will need some imports in at the beginning. Uh, Here I'm using the hiccup, which is very common in Clojure projects, an HTTP kit. Of course, there are other options for a HTTP server, and also for generating uh, HTML markup. But these two are included out of the box in the Babashka toolbox. So if you have a Babashka installed, you have all of these dependencies there. You don't need to install anything else, or not even a deep CDN file, or just your Babashka code and the interpreter, right? So with this, we can start coding a minimal HTTP server. I have here an extract for the very basic one. Here, of course, we have this function which will handle the request for each resource. So we start with this very simple code, very small, just a get and on the root resource, which is just returning this. Uh, and then we start the server on certain port, and we use these to keep the script waiting there, so that it doesn't go out, right? And it's handling all the requests that you do. So you can start this code very simple with the BB uh, interpreter for Babashka, and you can get it running like that. We are not using HTMX yet, of course. So the first thing that we will do is to add a new root for some content with the respective handler, right? For that. So each time we receive a get request on the content resource, we will return this status 200 for OK, and tell the client that the content is in HTML format, because as I told before, it's not using JSON or the usual things that we are accustomed from backend and front end development is using just plain HTML. Even from the for the data, right? They say like uh, it's going back to the hypertext origins. So and here we put some small paragraph thing like in the previous example, right? Like this. So we are emulating this like producing content. Okay. Then we can replace, of course, the main root to something more useful than just hello message, right? So we will do the same. Replace this here instead of just returning this small text. We will return the status and the headers, and in the body we put the HTMX script and the attributes. So this will be the handler. We are using the hipcap syntax instead of HTML, right? In the end, it will be HTML, but this is more familiar to us. So let's see what do we have here. We have in the first example, in the static one, we have the script element with the uh, referencing the HTMX uh, version. I think that there is a newer version, but when we were investigating this, this was the latest one. So probably it's maybe one or two uh, minor numbers up. Um, it's just about changing this, of course, right? And well, the attributes that we used to have in the HTML element, here we have them, but in a simple like a key value structure in the dictionary, right? So the HTMX attributes are like keys, and we put the values that we want there. In this case, are the same as before, right? So we have a trigger for the event that we want to be listening for or waiting for, and when that event happens, it will make a get a request to this resource, and with the contents it will replace this div, right? So very similar to the previous example. The contents will be like this, right? Just a paragraph with some text, but it could be as complex as you want. And of course, here, if you're using Babashka or Clojure, you can use like atoms, or maybe fill the thing with values coming from the database. You have more versatility than using just static files. So let's go to the code. Well, here I have uh, the Babashka example. I will stop the Python one. Well, if we take a look here, I have um, all the roots here inside these functions. So we have a few more than in the slides. I have the root content, which are the ones mentioned in the slides, and also I have these three ones, which is like another example that I will show you. And the rest of the code here is as in the slides, right? To start the server and keep waiting so that otherwise the script will just uh, go to the last line and it will stop running. We need this. So for the root, as we saw um, in the slides, we have the script here. We have the element that we are showing, and I added a link to the other example so that we can show that. Um, and in the content, we have the paragraph and, well, all the status and headers. And let's go to that first, and then we can jump to the other example that I have here. So I will put BB for Babashka here, HTMX Babashka. Yes, this is the file. Let's wait a bit for it. And let me check. We are on port this 9090. Okay, so let's go to the browser. 1990 here. So let me make it bigger. So here, very similar to the other one, we have this text with the, in this case, and as soon as oh, what I did? I already, yeah, as we have this div, right? And as soon as I hover it, it will be replaced. This is like the canonical example for the HTMX. So we do the same, and it's changing like in the previous example, but this time it's being served from Babashka, right? Or Clojure. If you want to do Clojure with the JVM, you can also do that. Yeah, and I also prepared these others. These are really small examples, just for to start um, getting to know HTMX, which maybe at the beginning is like somewhat different from other frameworks. So here I'm using this small atom to save a number, right? And we have this clicker resource, and this is returning like the other ones, HTML content using the script. Also, this script that maybe it could be refactored and put in a function to avoid repeating that. Just thinking that now. And here we render a button with the which will behave different according to this value here. So if we go to the render, if the amount that we pass to this render function is higher than 0, it will render the button with this code. Otherwise, it will produce this other code, right? So in one, we are like clicking and getting making a post to this other resource, the click. And if there are no remaining clicks available, we will see this other button, and it will communicate with this other resource with doing post to the reset. And here both of them are updating the values, right? Like decreasing or resetting the values as required. So let's go to that example. It's like very, very simple. So it's, if we go to here, have the resource here, we have the div, the original element, right? But as soon as I click here, this element, this button will be replaced with another button. So I could click here, and as you can see, it's being replaced with other button, but the rest of the page is stays as it was at the beginning. So this link is not modified, and maybe if I have other elements like maybe, I don't know, an SVG graphics or some animations or images or text or anything, but we are only changing this element here, so reducing a lot of computation, right, and recalculations. And if we keep going like that, it will be decreasing. And here you are seeing that, let me that we are making requests to this click uh, um, endpoint. And as soon as we go there, it shows the other message in the bottom, like well, there are no more clicks available. You have to reset. And if we click here again, it will use the other endpoint, right? The reset. So the behavior is changing, but only using these attributes. So we have the clicks again available, and you can click as many times as you want, right? And it will do this request there for different um, endpoints. So yes, and here of course you can do it as complex as you want. Um, Maybe one thing that it's a bit strange at the beginning is that you have to uh, refactor your code into small pieces, which will be replaced by their counterparts. So if this button updates to other different button, like here, you do it in small part, and the rest of the page should be separated, right? So this is kind of already familiar to us, like a modular programming into the different components or parts, or very functional oriented, like using different render functions, right, for different parts. But the unusual part is that only this element will be replaced, right? So that must be keep in pay attention to that, because for example, when I was learning this at the beginning, I tried to do it like the traditional approach, like doing um, the whole thing here, and I was replacing the whole page, so that was not the idea. You have to put these attributes in the inner components, so that you only replace the small piece of the DOM that it's required to change. So okay. So after we get this running, what can we do? Well, there are many HTMX attributes here that you can play with. For example, I was using this get and the post, but you have all the verbs available. Like maybe in the standard HTML, you have only a part of them, unless you're using JavaScript, but we are trying to avoid using JavaScript, right? So if you're using only HTML without too much JavaScript, you are limited to the a subset of these. And here you can use many other request types. Also, you have a lot of events. Here it's an incomplete list, like maybe the most usual ones, the more commons, like on change, on click, on key press, on mouse over, right? These are the standard events. Uh, and the interesting of this is that some elements in the HTML don't have a certain event, but which with HTMX you have almost all the events available in any element that you want, in a div, in a maybe uh, uh, it doesn't have some of these, right? You can use any an article, a section, anything could respond to these events. There are many more, of course. You can go to the documentation and play with that. And the actions, well, HX swap is one of them, like replacing the contents, right? I was using this outer HTML, which is replacing a whole element. For example, the div was replaced with the paragraph, but it's the entire element. You can change that behavior, that action, so that instead of replacing the whole element, you can replace only the parts of inside, or work with the first children, like this, the first child, right? So this is replacing all the children's, and this is replacing only the first, uh, or the whole element, that as I was doing before, right? There are other swap actions. You can also put like none of these, like nothing gets replaced, and only send some information to the backend, or so it's not only replacing elements, right? There are other interactions for working with the CSS, with the effects, like for example, put some animation ongoing a certain amount of time. That can be done with the trigger. So you can say, for example, instead of waiting for the user to do some of this thing, you can tell HTMX to wait for certain amount of time to pass, and that will be the event, like 1 second pass or 2 second. Um, and there are other, of course, right? Not only user related. And here in the slides, I put the standard documents for HTMX. Maybe I will copy some of the links that I was using, others than this, and add it here. But for now, you have the homepage, the links to the attributes I was using, and there is this reference which has a lot of attributes, a lot more than this. So it's very versatile. You can use many of them, like available, right? Um, like here, you can go to the reference, and there are a lot, but it's kind of approachable. You can go to each one of these and just add it to the element that you want, and you will get the the behavior that is uh, mentioned there. And maybe for the next talk, I don't know if Dan will include some of hyperscript things. There is this on to handle other events using this scripting, right? So you can use hyperscript there, which makes more behaviors, custom behaviors available. Not only the predefined behaviors here, but uh, any behavior that you want to produce, right? And also there is a set of examples here that you could go one by one. Like for example, here they put the code uh, with the, in this case, is replacing this description of a person, uh, and replacing it with a form to fill the details, right? And you have the example here, a working example. So you click there, it could edit, then you cancel or do something with the information, right? And it shows how many requests it's doing, which is useful. Um, and there are many examples here. I took a look at some of them, and it's uh, like really fun thing to do, to have some fun with this. Um, Great. I'm sure that in the next talk, probably we will take a look at more complex things, maybe with some animations. We have to discuss that with Dan. But I hope that this was kind of useful for you. I don't know if you have questions. Otherwise, well, thank you. Any questions or comments? Yeah.
Uh, Thank you, Alvaro, for this. It was pretty useful for me personally. I just heard a bit about HTMX, and this was nice to understand better what it is. Like I have maybe an obvious like a first question with this. Yeah, the approach is to return HTML over Ajax call instead of JSON, but like of course, we already have a lot of REST APIs, and what is the like recommended approach to work with them? Like, do I need to wrap them on backend? Like, you guess it's not the ideal solution. If like if you access some third-party API, you will proxy all the traffic through your backend. So, how easy it is to work with JSON from this?
Well, this is not so ideal to work with JSON. Of course, you can do that, but if you do that, the best way is to process the JSON on the backend, right? And produce something more like HTML oriented. Why? They are their way of thinking of these HTMX developers. Uh, they they are saying like that JSON is not the pure hypertext oriented approach, right? They are trying to show that the rest can be done using HTMX directly, HTML directly, right? So, for example, instead of having a JSON to represent the data structure and then converting that to HTML, you can produce all these as HTML tree, right? The document, and the idea is that the HTML also have an structure. Like maybe you have a list of items and you have elements for that, and instead of trying to use other thing to translate into that, because at the end the result will be HTML, right? Well, that's the idea which came from this project. Um, or now from my point of view, yes, on some point maybe uh, it's easier to work with the JSON. You have um, a trade-off there, uh, but well, that will be putting more emphasis on the client side processing, right? And this is moving more of the processing to the server, like server side rendering. um, it's a trade-off. uh, they are trying to do like lightweight clients without too much processing on the front end. So most of the processing is done with the attributes, right? Does this answer your question, or maybe?
Well, sort of does. Yeah, like I understand the approach, but I was curious if it's possible still to hack and access JSON APIs from the front end, not going through
Oh,
backend.
oh, well, if you have already if you already have a backend using JSON for the API, right? Of course, you can put some JavaScript in the code and process that on the front end, like a traditional front end, or maybe using maybe if you're mixing this with some frameworks like a React or something like that, it can be done. So it will not bother you. I mean, you can put something like these attributes in an element where you want this interaction, but the rest of the code could be the traditional JavaScript oriented code, right? So you can mix both approach, and at some point you have this JSON based, so JavaScript oriented code with a, a more code. Maybe it could be a bit more complex, right? And in some cases, it's better to use these attributes from HTMX, and it will not it will not make trouble to you. It will just work here with its element, and it will not affect the other ones. And maybe the good part of that is that you can use something that JavaScript with the templates on the front end. Maybe you could produce these, um, and then interact with the HTMX using the like front end side or generated code, right? So it's compatible with that. It will not get trouble for you. Yeah. Also, you can mix it also in the backend with the template system. So, for example, if you want to put some information here, well, this is the static one, right? But if you want to put some information, you can use a template like a liquid or mustache or something like that to put content here. Or well, in maybe in Clojure and in Babashka, we don't have uh, so much trouble with that because we can mix a Clojure code with this uh, hipcap syntax, right? So maybe in Clojure is even easier because you don't need so many templates and things like that, right? But if you are working in other project which is not um, which doesn't have a hiccup, maybe you are using, don't know, Python. They also have some templates, and Flask is using that, I think. You also have, like in Rust, you have Axiom, like I mentioned. You can use also templates or even macros to generate this code. Um, uh, but in the end, it will be HTML with the attributes, right? No other questions? Well, if there are no other questions, I think that's all for now. Um, well, thanks everyone. We will have the advanced track soon, uh, as soon as Dan uh, gets into it. Uh, uh, but I will upload all of this material so that you can play with it. Maybe just watching is not so fun. I think that playing with this thing is the real where the real fun is, right? So we will upload all of that to the Zulip so that you can play with it. Well, that's all. Thanks everybody.